An unreasonable boss question. I would like to ask, what is the right approach as a middle manager when my team members are struggling because of an unreasonable and authoritarian boss? Answer. When we say that we have an unreasonable boss, we should first reconsider our perspective. In today's world, many people who were once influential in the past are still seated in various positions of power in society. They seem to be sitting there doing nothing, at least from the perspective of today's intellectuals. However, instead of first identifying our own shortcomings, we only label them as incompetent or lacking common sense. But how many of us actually take action and prove our abilities in such a way that they have no choice but to step down? No one does this. What have you done for the world? What justifies the need for them to step aside? There is no answer. That is why our younger generation cannot take such positions easily. If you do not prove your ability, they will never yield their positions. They will only relinquish them when they have no other choice, even if it means taking their position to the grave. Why? Because those who hold power believe that if they remain in their positions, no one can easily take them away. Those who have money will also say, "I will only pass this on when I am in my grave." That is how they ensure that wealth does not get scattered and is preserved. If you claim to be an intellectual, you must persuade and convince them. You must find a way to make even so-called unreasonable people understand. If you cannot, then you lack ability. This society has nurtured and raised you, yet if you merely complain that someone is blocking your way and demand that they step aside, you are not truly capable. If those in power are unable to fulfill their roles, and you step up and prove yourself, they will naturally have no choice but to leave. This will happen automatically. However, since you fail to demonstrate your ability, you remain powerless, and the situation becomes distorted. Despite all the signs pointing to this reality, if you still do not take action and only criticize them, they will never step down. If they yield their positions too easily, it could put the entire country at risk. If you claim to be an intellectual, then you must develop the ability to persuade and win over these individuals. Only then, when the power shifts, will the country be set on the right path. Many young people today complain about those in power and label them as incompetent, but do they possess the ability to surpass them? The environment has been set up to provide young people with knowledge and opportunities. However, there are few who actually step up and prove their worth. Instead, they expect to be handed those positions and wealth. Ironically, when young people do take such positions, they often fail to sustain them and are eventually forced out. Even if they are given wealth, they are unable to manage it properly and end up losing it to others. Those in power protect and preserve their wealth, but not for themselves. It is kept in reserve until young people demonstrate real ability. If you want to take their place, you must impress them and make them willingly step aside. This is the challenge for today's younger generation. Senior figures may appear unreasonable, but if you do not challenge them and demonstrate competence, they will only act even more fiercely. For example, if your parents are sick and struggling, it is because their children are not living properly. If their children live joyfully and responsibly, their suffering will lessen. It follows the same principle. This society must be led by the younger generation, but instead of expecting things to be handed over, young people must work to create value in society. Only then will society change, and those in power will also change. If you have true ability, no one can forcibly oppose you. True ability naturally compels others to step aside and offer support. The problem is not with the older generation or those in power. It is that the younger generation is failing to demonstrate real ability. Those in power are simply holding on to their positions until the younger generation is ready. In fact, about 70% of the economy is hidden away, with only 30% being actively utilized in society. The fundamental operations continue, but the rest is being safeguarded. Why? Because it is meant to be invested when the younger generation proves itself. It is not being hoarded for personal gain but reserved for when capable individuals emerge. If you focus only on blaming others, your own abilities will never grow. Do not hastily criticize people you do not understand. Complaining about them will only make things harder for you, and no new paradigm will emerge. Instead, you should say, "Until I prove my ability, please do not yield that position." Likewise, until I prove my ability, my parents should not pass their wealth down to me. That is the correct mindset. An unreasonable boss and the importance of competence. 1. Don't just assume your boss is unreasonable. Many people in powerful positions today were once successful in the past. They may seem like they are doing nothing, but simply criticizing them does not solve the problem. The key is not to blame them but to prove your own ability. 2. Why they don't easily give up their positions. People in power do not give up their positions to those who lack competence. Likewise, wealthy individuals do not easily pass down their assets. When young people demonstrate true ability, positions will naturally change hands. 3. You must earn recognition through competence. Simply labeling existing leaders as unreasonable is not a solution. Instead, you must develop the ability to persuade and impress them. No one can resist real competence, it forces change naturally. 4. Society must be led by competent people. The younger generation must demonstrate their ability to contribute to society. Only then will the older generation willingly pass down leadership. Those who only complain will never grow or create real change. 5. Power and wealth should not be given to the unprepared. If an incompetent person takes over a position, they will eventually fail. The same applies to wealth. If given to someone unprepared, it will be lost. Until a capable successor emerges, the older generation preserves power and resources. Conclusion: the problem is not with the older generation, but with the younger generation failing to prove their competence. Power and economic resources are being safeguarded until young people are ready. Rather than blaming others, focus on developing your skills. Have the mindset, do not give me the position until I have proven myself worthy. This article has been written on the topic of an unreasonable boss. The test of competence. 1. A new team leader and the beginning of a crisis at a major corporation in Seoul. The marketing department employees sighed as they entered the office elevator. The reason was simple. The new department head, Director Park. "I can't stand it anymore. The director yells at us for no reason." Exactly. We used to be able to share our opinions, but now it's just orders. It feels like the military. As complaints filled the air, one man stood silently. It was Kang Min-sok, the team leader. In his early 40s, he was a middle manager tasked with balancing the needs of both his team and upper management. "The more complaints we have, the more work we need to do," Kang said calmly. "What? Why should we work harder? We just have a terrible boss." "That's true. But the only way to overcome such a boss is through competence." His words left the team members puzzled. 2. An impossible mission. One day, Director Park summoned the team to a meeting. His expression was stern. "Increase next quarter's revenue by at least 30%. Figure it out. And when you leave this meeting, bring a concrete strategy." There's no time. The team members turned pale. A 30% increase was an impossible goal. No one could respond. "Is this difficult?" Director Park sneered. "If it's too hard, leave. Only those who can do it should stay." At that moment, Kang Min-sok spoke up. "Director, setting ambitious goals is fine, but feasibility is important. We need to analyze existing data and develop a realistic plan." "A realistic plan?" Park scoffed. "I don't pay you to find practical methods. I pay you to meet the target. I don't need to hear what you can't do." The team sank into despair. But Kang Min-sok thought differently. He decided to take on the challenge. 3. Proving competence. That night, Kang called an emergency meeting with his team. "Raising the target like this is ridiculous," one employee complained. "True, but what if we actually achieve it?" Kang asked. "If we do, we'd be recognized. But is that even possible?" "It is. Instead of blaming the director, we need to use our skills to reach this goal. If we succeed, can he continue to ignore us?" The team fell silent, considering his words. Then, one by one, they nodded. They spent nights analyzing data and devising new marketing strategies. They refined their ad targeting and strengthened online campaigns. It was more difficult than they had anticipated, but they gave it their all. 1 month later, a miracle happened. Instead of a 30% increase, they achieved a staggering 35% revenue growth. 4. A changed attitude. On the day the results were announced, Director Park called the team back in. But this time, his expression was different. "Good job," he said briefly. That was all. But the team knew exactly what it meant. It wasn't just praise, it was acknowledgement. A few months later, Director Park was promoted to an executive position and left the department. His replacement was someone no one had expected. It was Kong Min-sok. 5. The true competitor. Now the department head, Kong Min-sok, gathered his team and spoke. Was Director Park really an unreasonable man? Maybe he was testing us all along. He believed that only competent individuals should hold positions of power, but he was too harsh. You're right. But we passed his test. The key takeaway is that we didn't just complain, we proved our worth. The team members smiled and nodded. They no longer wasted energy on complaints. Instead, they realized that honing their skills was the best solution. Looking out the window, Kong Min-sok thought to himself, in the end, only those with true competence can get what they want in this world. His eyes were filled with determination.